introduce myself. I am Denise Fairchild, and I'm the President and CEO of Emerald Cities Collaborative. And I would like to open up sort of an introduction to Emerald Cities by introducing you to one of our co-founders and very active board member, Dr. Joel Rogers, who is the director of COWS, and he'll tell you what COWS is all about, at the University of Madison, Wisconsin. Joel Rogers.
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it for Joel and for Denise. Yeah, I just wanted to say something for those people who are not totally familiar with Emerald Cities about Emerald Cities, and just say how delighted we are to be here at BCC, Berkeley City College, which as one of many great community colleges around the country, we see as really critical to building the sort of community-based collaboration between business and labor, believe it or not, and the public sector and the training institutions. And other advocates from the community, making sure, particularly those from underserved, traditionally underserved communities, to make sure they get a piece of the action in building and greening our cities and building our communities and strengthening our democracy as high road cities or emerald cities, in which in the future, we're going to see equity and sustainability and democracy not seen as tragic trade-offs, but as critical complements in building a society fit to live in, starting in our cities. Cities, as you know, get a bad rap in American politics. They're sometimes treated as the stepchildren of American politics, collections of pathologies, or charnel houses where dead people go to, where you store the bodies. We think of cities in a very different way, and our view is based on fact, which is that cities are actually, in the metro areas that they anchor, are the source of most of American wealth. So the Bay Area is one of 100 top metros in the U.S. On just 12% of the land accounts for about 75% of American GDP. And we want to make sure that those cities are really strong engines, not just of competitiveness, but also green and sustainability, and not just green and sustainability and competitiveness, but also equitable in sharing the benefits of building that society. That's basically what Emerald Cities is about. And it is a collaborative effort, as its name suggests. It is foursquare and unapologetic about its values, but it's a nonpartisan effort. It's obviously a nonprofit, so if anyone here has any money, give us all of your money, and then we'll try to help you make some on the side. And it is an extraordinary board and a privilege to serve on this board with a lot of people more distinguished than myself, from representing, again, business, labor, to some extent government, but a number of nonprofit institutions of real scale in addition to the advocacy organizations. And that's basically the story, so far as I can see. Do you want to go right to Dr. Rudd or back to you, Denise?
I'll introduce that.
Okay.
Any questions of Dr. Rogers?
Yeah, any questions? I'm a professor, so I'd love to talk. And I don't want to be the dictatorship with a blabbermouth, though, and talk forever. Nothing? Sounds good, though, doesn't it? Emerald City, yeah, all right.
Okay, thank you very much, Joel. All right, so we are very pleased, as Joel suggested, to be partnering with Peralta Community College and the City of San Francisco Community College system. It is an amazing, as well as New Hampshire, that will be represented today, later through a telecast. But this is an amazing kind of partnership, and the assets that that the community colleges bring to this vision and this work of a sustainable, equitable region is immense. And I know this only because I've spent 15 years in a community college, and so that's my love, that's my heart, that's the center of how I see anchor institutions being catalytic for larger change. We have an amazing set of leaders here that will be sort of telling you their story about how they're engaged in this work. And I'd first like to start with the introduction of Dr. Deborah Budd. And Dr. Deborah Budd is the interim president of Berkeley City College, and we thank you, Dr. Budd, for hosting us today. Let's give her a round of applause. Dr. Budd has 25 years of experience working in education. She's overseen 16 years in as administrative capacity and 9 years of teaching. She is currently serving as the interim president of this college. She has previously served as vice chancellor of educational services for Peralta Community College District, and the district is composed of 4 campuses, including Berkeley, Laney, Merritt, and College of Alameda. Prior to working at the district, Debbie served as VP of Instructions at Berkeley City College And then before moving to the district, she was VP of Educational Resources and Instructions for Foothill College in Los Altos Hills. She brings obviously a lot of experience to this work and strong leadership, and we welcome you, Dr. Butt, to the podium.
Thank you, Denise, and thank you very much, Emerald Cities, for hosting this conference and allowing us to welcome everyone today. We are so excited because the partnerships that we can build with the community colleges and business is incredible. And before I go into that, I wanted to just share a little bit with you about Berkeley City College. It may be surprising to you that Berkeley City College was completed in 2006, and when it was, as it was a first LEED building, LEED Silver community college in California, and the first LEED building in Berkeley. Can you believe in Berkeley? It was designed by Ratcliffe Architects, and that firm has been in Berkeley for over 100 years. It is the only urban campus in one building in the state of California. There are 112 community colleges in California, of which Berkeley City College is always in the top 10 of transfers to UCs and CSUs, and we are really very proud of that. All of our colleges in the Peralta district do excellent work. BCC is meeting the demands of the urban education for the 21st century. The college is consistently, as I mentioned, in the top 10, and we really look forward to continuing our partnerships with UC. We have several people from UC Berkeley coming today, and 35 years ago, we developed one of the first partnerships. Berkeley City used to be called Vista College. We offer courses up on the Berkeley campus every evening. So it's some great partnerships. Berkeley City College has a variety of curriculum with biotechnology, with health information systems, web design, social services. Recently, we've partnered with some greening programs, and Berkeley City College offers our students some green career pathways that flow right into what we're discussing today. These pathways work in collaboration with two community partners, Rising Sun and Solar Richmond. And we work through the CTE Community Collaborative Grant with the Chancellor's Office. Our community partners also receive grant funds, and together we leverage those for the green career pathways. We call it Roots for Success, and we help students with foundational skills move on to transfer level and get jobs in the local community. And I know as we talk today, that's going to be a huge emphasis of how we can partner with the local businesses, with our college curriculum, working with faculty, working with students, and how we can really enhance that partnership. Because community colleges can work as a catalyst for America's triple bottom line: environment, economy, and equity. And having done a lot of work with social justice and equity and how we can really enhance the urban communities, I think there's a lot we can learn from today's work. As we go through, we're really excited about strengthening and expanding our partnerships, and know it's just the right time for community colleges to position themselves as the anchor for sector workforce development. I think throughout the day you'll hear a lot about a recent grant we've received. Berkeley City College is part of a 10-college consortium with the TAA grant. Los Medanos College is the host for that, and it is really working as a collaborative with 10 colleges in the region to work with the workforce on how we can help develop our students to have a stronger economy. And I know a lot of great things are going to happen throughout the day that will, I think, have everyone leaving thinking, wow, we can do some great things. I'd like to introduce our next speaker. And our next speaker is Mr. John Rizzo. He is a president of the Board of Trustees of the City College of San Francisco. Mr. Rizzo was elected to City College's Board of Trustees in 2006 and also has served as vice chair of the board. Before his election to the board, Mr. Rizzo served on City College's Bond Oversight Committee, working for fiscal responsibility and accountability in the spending of public bond funds. He is a strong advocate and promoter of clean energy and environmental initiatives. He co-authored a resolution passed by the board that commits City College to creating a sustainability plan and to study green jobs training programs. Beyond City College, and until recently, Mr. Rizzo served as a chair of a 40,000-member Sierra Club San Francisco Bay chapter. His continued work includes fighting global warming, conserving water resources, and working for better public transportation. In fact, he worked to pass ballot measures that fund solar energy and that require Muni, the transportation in San Francisco, to buy cleaner city buses, and is a commissioner on the Golden Gate Park Concourse Authority. He is a graduate of Rutgers University. Mr. Rizzo holds a Bachelor of Science degree in engineering. He is an author, writer, and content publisher, and writing about computer technology and enterprise systems, and is an adult education instructor. We are really thrilled to welcome you here to Berkeley City College, and we're really thrilled to welcome Mr. John Rizzo.
Thank you for having me here. It's really an honor. The environment and education are my two great passions, and they work hand in hand, or I try to bring them to work hand to hand. Working with the Sierra Club for so long, when I first got elected, I thought, oh, I'm going to bring environmentalism to community colleges, and then I discovered that actually community colleges were some of the leaders in environmentalism. I was not disappointed, however. I was very pleased. The society and the world really face a very serious threat of global warming that we thought we were going to make significant headway after Al Gore's movie, The Tipping Point, where we got a groundswell of support for the concept of the planet heating up and climate changing. But since then, it's become apparent that the federal government in the United States is not going to act, is not going to lead the way. In fact, it was very frustrating to see that climate change did not appear, the word did not appear in any of the presidential debates that we've had so far. Very disappointing. So it is up to localities, it is up to municipalities to make this happen, to save the planet in essence. And when you look at cities, there is a lot of hype, and that's true in both San Francisco and in Berkeley. There's more hype than actual progress, although there is a lot of progress, but it's not as much as the cities will tell you there is. But what isn't seen and what is not hyped is the progress in the environment that universities and community colleges are making. And it's very significant. I think they're ahead of the cities in many ways. And it's really great in this time with diminishing resources that education is having to see a project like Emerald City come up, a public-private partnership to bring resources to not only help the environment and address global warming, but to affect education's bottom line, to lower their costs, their energy costs, their water costs. It's a very positive development. I wanted to recognize the Peralta Community College District here as being one of the leaders among the community colleges. They have a sustainability plan. In fact, we got the idea from them. We stole the idea. That Laney College has a well-known academic training program, workforce training program that is well known among community colleges in the Green area. A lot of other community colleges are building or have built LEED buildings. So with LEED is the environmental standard for green buildings, and there's a rating. It's such as regular LEED, then silver, then gold, and platinum is the top LEED building. And there are several community colleges that have LEED platinum buildings. There's still not that many LEED platinum buildings today. There's one in San Francisco, and that's the Academy of Sciences. Sacramento, Santa Barbara, Foothill De Anza, and Ohlone have platinum buildings. In fact, Ohlone College has a LEED platinum campus. It's very impressive. LA Community College, they're committed to getting off of the 3 grids. The 3 grids are power, liquid, which is water and wastewater, and solid waste, trash. And it's in it's a goal for them to get off of that, to be energy independent, water independent. They won't get there, but they'll get close. And that's very commendable. There's no city that I know of that has made that kind of a commitment. So at City College, I'll just briefly go into what we've been doing. And this started before I got there, so I'm not taking any credit for any of this. But we have a great recycling program and composting program. So at every building, we have bins, 3 bins, a green bin for composting, a trash bin, and a recycling bin. We also recycle major big things, furniture, computers, and once a year there's a big recycling drive where the community could come in and bring their big stuff to be recycled. We created a sustainability plan that addresses all kinds of areas. So it addresses new buildings. All new buildings will be a LEED certified buildings. It addresses our water usage, our energy usage. It called for the creation of it called for an energy audit, which we have done, which looks at how much energy is being used by our buildings and how it could be saved. We added an environmental science degree, which we didn't have before. We added some workforce training classes in solar and in hybrid cars. The energy audit here is what I want to talk a little bit about. The platinum buildings are great for building new buildings, and gold. We have 2 gold buildings, I believe now. The multi-use building and the Chinatown campus. Chinatown campus is 2 buildings itself, so it's 3 gold buildings. But the greenest way to go green is not to build new platinum buildings, but it's to retrofit old buildings. If you look at the total carbon footprint, a new green building doesn't pay off a net gain, net reduction of carbon for many years because of the costs in energy, the carbon costs in energy and water to create that building. Producing concrete is hugely carbon intensive. So retrofitting older buildings is the best way to address global warming. It's also the cheapest way to address global warming. Going in and retrofitting, you get more bang for the buck than building, solar arrays or anything like that. So this is another great thing about Emerald Cities. So we have this energy audit that we did. And it's great stuff. It told us where we could save power. And we did recently a retrofit of a building, the John Adams campus, because for earthquake retrofitting, it's a 100-year-old building. And while we were doing it, we did some energy work as well. We replaced a 100-year-old oil boiler with a modern natural gas boiler, and we're saving approximately half the energy costs. Just for that project. So, so implementing what the energy audit says would save City College a lot of money, but we have not been able to find the capital to make it happen. Like most community colleges, bonds are becoming, bond measures to the voters are becoming less frequent. For one, the depressed economy has not made taxes all that popular, but community colleges are going for parcel taxes. With the drastic cutbacks in state funding, they're turning towards their operating budgets. So there's this wave of green building is kind of slowing down right now. So I think Emerald City is really a path forward to continuing that, but in a better way, a more cost-effective way, and a more carbon-friendly way. I guess someone else will talk about Emerald Cities, what they're doing, but we were very, very, very pleased when they approached us to help us with some of our retrofitting projects. And City College is going to benefit greatly, and the planet will benefit greatly as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rizzo. That was amazing. Mr. Rizzo, I'm going to call you doctor anyway. The expertise and the qualities of your vision is actually going to teach us a lot as well. And so let me tell you exactly what we envision out of this partnership, what we bring, and then what I'm hearing about what you bring. One, first of all, is the community college is an asset that is tremendous. And today we'll talk about how we talk about those assets and deconstruct it in a way to figure out how we reconstruct it for collaborative agenda. But the campus itself and campus sustainability, and how do we in fact reduce the carbon footprint, not only of your campus, but these are such large facilities that it will have a great impact on the carbon reduction in the city, in the region as a whole. So we hope to bring to that effort financial, public-private, creative financing, as you suggest, to help colleges accelerate, scale this up, and get it done quicker. And so tomorrow, as a part of our agenda, we will have a private investors forum to really, which will bring over 24 investors to come and begin to look at the numbers and to begin to figure out how we get deals done on the campus sustainability side. We have on our board a number of outstanding academic institutions and scholars in this space, to Joel Rogers being one, and we have partnerships with MIT that can bring additional knowledge about how to support broader campus sustainability plans. And so beyond the retrofit work, what else do you need to do, whether it's in obviously the renewable space or water or urban ag or what have you. So we want to bring leverage your student capacities and research capacities with the capacities from around the country, because we are a national organization. So campus sustainability is a core piece of what we want to contribute to our community colleges here and in other places. On the education and training side, obviously there's a lot of resources, leadership of faculty, curricula that you bring, and we want to just figure out how we create a learning community across campuses, across the country, to make certain that we're building a comprehensive curriculum and multiple pathways so that we're training the future generation to push sustainability forward. If there's going to be a different kind of cleaner energy environment, a sustainable economy, it's going to be because people here in this room and elsewhere are being trained to do it. They're doing it at the policy level. They're doing it because they're, struggling, working on environmental justice and organizing issues. They're doing it because they're learning the new construction skills. They're doing it because they're the architects and engineers. And so they're doing it because they're in the business sector and marketing this. There is multiple pathways to this future, and it's the curriculum, the curricular work of this campus that we want to help grow and support. And we have a partnership with U.S. Green Building Council, and they'll talk about that later, about the resources they'll bring to this collaborative. Obviously, American Association of Community Colleges. So we're building national resources to strengthen and enhance faculty and staff. The most interesting stuff, I think, in fact, we'll talk about a lot of that in the 2 morning panels. I'm going to be most excited to talk about the non-traditional work of community colleges and how so there's things that you will bring to our collective think, but there's some things that we would like to bring to your table. So the afternoon, we'll really talk about the role of community colleges in business development, startup businesses, green tech, operations, and building business incubators as a driver for growing the economy. As our New Hampshire partner has actually a substantial experience in this space. I know, coming from community college, that a lot of our students come out of career technical education, and they're learning to be cosmetologists and auto mechanics and culinary artists, not to work for someone, but to actually start their own businesses. And so how do we enhance the technical knowledge and skills that they're getting with the business development, procurement opportunity, access to capital? So we really want to figure out how community colleges can really accelerate the small business startup and existing business development. So we'll have a conversation with our business community in the third session this afternoon. The last, and I love this one most of all, is the conversation we're going to have about civic engagement and how to ensure that the work, the thinking, the benefits of this is broadly distributed to those that are not on this campus, that are not in this community. I think we have a lot more work to do to bring low-income communities of color into the conversation about sustainability. And I have to tell you, it may be a hard conversation. We have Dr. Brian Murphy from De Anza, who will be here today. I think he's just an organizer at heart, who's going to really talk about, well, you know, when you talk about sustainability to communities of color, when you're finally saying they get a chance to own that big house and those multiple cars, and now you're saying you can't have it. Now you're saying that, oh, no, you got to be sustainable. Oh, no, you got to conserve. So what is the equity? What is the justice issue? How do we have those conversations? And what is the role of community colleges in that kind of civic and community engagement? What's the role of our students in developing a larger movement around sustainability? So that's going to be our fourth panel. And so I'm hopeful that we have over close to 200 people registered today, and so I know the conversation is going to get richer and richer throughout the day. And so with that, the most exciting part of it is obviously a special guest. We have Department of Energy here today, Representative Advisor to Secretary Chu, who will talk about the Department of Energy. So we'll be bringing those national level resources to you and connections. So in addition to, is Michelle here? Michelle Foss, okay. Hi, Michelle. So she will be talking to you later about what DOE is doing and what they're doing across a number of agencies. And then at lunch, or just before lunch, we will have Secretary Hilda Solis from the Department of Labor, who will talk about DOL and do some celebratory kinds of things for the collaborative that's taken place. So are you ready? Yes. Is it exciting? All right.
Are you ready?
Yeah. All right. So we're going to move into the first panel. But before we do this, I'm going to have to say that none of this would happen were it not for the leadership and support of our local councils and our local directors. Tara Marchant, who's our Oakland director. Let's give her a round of applause. Avni Jamdar from our San Francisco office. Give her a round of applause. They have built really a robust council, a local council of the labor, the community, and the business partnerships who have taken the assets and their knowledge and built and is continuing to build out the Emerald City's work here. And so I'd like any of our local council representatives from San Francisco and Oakland to raise your hand, stand up, give a shout out. Stephen, Junius. Come on, everyone stand up. Let's not be shy. All right. So it is the collaboration that's going to make this work. And we also have we're in 10 places. And in addition to, we've got our Atlanta office here. Miss Cleggett, I'm gonna get your name wrong, and then Stephen Gale from Seattle. So we're doing this in many places, and so we look to you and to your leadership to again help our other programs think about how we do this work most effectively. So let's yes. Day two. Do I want to talk about day two? So we're going to actually we're going to kick the tires a little bit tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, we're going to really look at the work that's taking place on Laney College, where, and Tara, you can talk better about this, is a net zero sustainability center that's being built and designed. It'll be absolute state-of-the-art, and Tara got the support of PG&E to help in the design, the technical design support for creating this Star Wars kind of facility. So we look forward to you coming out to day two, and then we do go into a private conversation about how we finance these projects. So we will have lunch, and there will be a networking reception after that, so everything is in your program, but let's get started. Again, let's thank our opening presenters. And I'd like to call the first panel up. First panel we have is Francesca and Avni. Are you leading this? Thank you.
Your moderator for this panel this morning, and I'm so excited to be in this role because it's the opening panel, and we're hoping to really set the tone for the day, for these 2 days, which are such important days. And the Emerald Cities Collaborative is really breaking a lot of ground, as we've just heard. And so we get to now really move from bigger vision into some real practical ideas and solutions. This panel is representative of business community, of municipal government, of administration from the city college level and the community college level. And we'll be able to really hear about some specific ideas, what the opportunities are, and also what some of the challenges are into moving this green economy agenda forward. A couple of things I just want to mention, though. I don't know if everybody knows that at 10:18 today is the state earthquake drill. So I just want to give everybody a heads up there. You're supposed to duck and cover at that time. I'm glad we're in this room because I don't know if there's a lot of falling parts or vases or things. And I don't think we actually will duck and cover, but I just want people to be mindful. Last year at 10:18 when they did this, there was a slight tremor. So it's actually quite interesting that that happened. I'm actually glad that the A's did not make it to the World Series this year because if you recall, the last time the Giants and the A's played against each other, there was an earthquake. So I think, regionally, when there's that kind of partnership, that tension, sometimes the earth will shake. So just want to put that out there. I want to mention one thing. A lot of the framing for today is around these 3 E's, and I want to re-emphasize that. And it's really about economy, the environment, and equity as the triple bottom line that we're all working towards. But I really thought that there's a 4th E that should really be part of that bottom line, and that's education. Because community colleges and city colleges have such a critical role to play when it comes to moving a green agenda and creating a sustainable economy that we've got to make sure that that 4th E is at the table. So I just want everybody to think about that framing a bit. Here we are in California. It's hard to tell, that it's such a beautiful day out there because we're sitting in this dark space. And it's also hard to tell when you do walk around outside in this beautiful day about the planetary crisis that we're in, because we really are in a place of planetary emergency. And John Rizzo talked a little bit about climate change and how little we're hearing about climate change at the upper levels of government, at the upper levels of decision making, and how critical it is that we need to be talking about climate change and have that specifically front and center on the table. I thought it was quite interesting. I don't know how many people watched the debate on Tuesday night, but it was almost like which candidate could swallow the biggest piece of coal the fastest. I couldn't believe it. It was all about, how are we going to open our public lands? Who has more licenses? What are we doing? And there was nothing about solutions. There was nothing about what we're going to do to really set up the economy that we need to set up. So we have gathered here today and tomorrow, but on this panel, some of the brightest leading thinkers on what we're going to do to integrate community colleges in this effort to address climate change and create a sustainable and green economy. So I'm going to move forward and introduce our panelists. Stephen DeBerry, I'm going to start with you, if that's all right. But actually, I think, Don, did you want to make some opening remarks?
Whatever.
Because I saw that on the agenda. So Don, maybe I should introduce you first. And you can go ahead and make a few, framing remarks. Donald Gilligan is the president of the National Association of Energy Service Companies. Mr. Gilligan, a lot of doctors here, but not as many as we'd like. Mr. Gilligan has worked in the energy efficiency industry since 1975 as a consultant, entrepreneur, and state government official. He now coordinates NESCO, is that how you say it? The National Association of Energy Service Companies, federal and state advocacy activities with other national and regional energy efficiency organizations. He is the author and co-author of a number of reports on energy efficiency and the growth of the ESCO industry. Mr. Gilligan.
Thank you, Francesca. I think that my job is, as Francesca said, is to just set out a few framing facts about what's going on in the energy efficiency business, particularly as it, in regard to public facilities. And so I'm going to talk about it from the perspective of our industry, which does the lion's share of the work in these facilities, to give you some idea of the size and scope of today's industry, what the potential market is, and what some of the drivers are in the business, which may come as a surprise to you. And finally, a few facts about the employment in the ESCO industry. So the ESCO industry today in the US is about a $6 billion a year business. It is about 90%, not quite 90%, in public facilities, federal, state, local, K-12 schools, the whole gamut of public facilities. It has grown quite significantly over the past decade and continued to grow right through the recession because of the drivers that I'll talk about. The thing which distinguishes the kinds of projects that ESCO Energy Service Companies do is that they are essentially self-financing. That is, the energy and maintenance savings from the projects pay the entire capital cost of the project. And over the course of the last 2 decades, we've done about $45 billion worth of these kinds of projects across the country. It may seem from those numbers as though we're getting to the end of the potential market, but we've really only scratched it. We've done some estimates with the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, just up the hill here, that indicate that there is probably at least a $100 billion market in public facilities remaining. That's with today's technology. That's important because as technology advances, and there are big advances every year, the market expands. So if you think about just something as simple as lighting, we're now into the 5th generation of new lighting technologies from when I started doing lighting projects in the early 90s. And we are, in many cases, going back to the same facilities which had a lighting upgrade in the 1990s and doing another upgrade because the technology has advanced so much that we can afford to do that, and it pays for itself in energy savings. That trend is not going to stop. It's going to continue forever. So it's a huge market, and we are, you know, when we say we're doing, say, $5 billion a year in that market, we're doing 5% a year. We're not doing 50% a year. It's not like the smartphone market where everybody has a smartphone and you know, it's tiny. We've scratched the surface, and there's a huge amount to be done. In terms of employment, we as an industry don't talk about the green economy versus the coal economy, because on a political level, that gets us into, first of all, discussions which are way above our pay grade academically. And number two, it's subject to lots of different opinions, and it's hard to win that argument. So we simply say, if we're going to retrofit a building, it takes people to do it. There's no argument about that. You know, if we're going to go through this building and change the lighting system and change the air conditioning system, it takes people to do it. We know how many people it takes to do that. We've got Department of Labor figures which go back 50 years about how many people it takes to do a construction project. So we know it takes about 10 people to do $1 million project, plus the multiplier of maybe 12 people. So you're talking about 22 jobs per $1 million of projects. Long-standing figure. We don't have to argue the green economy versus, you know, we don't have to do any of that. These are very solid numbers, and it's not really impeachable by opinion, unless you think lights get changed by magic. And finally, I'd like to talk a little bit, give you some insight as to the drivers in these projects. Since most of the work is at government facilities, most of the work that we do today is in government facilities. The drivers, there are really two drivers. One is mandates, federal, state, and local government mandates, in which the legislature or the governor or in some cases the president says we're going to save X amount. Oftentimes these numbers are totally arbitrary. You know, if you go back a few years, the number 20 by 20 was real popular. You know, we're going to save 20% by 2020. Wasn't founded on any kind of real analysis of, you know, in most cases 20% was a pretty modest goal, you know, but it sounded good. The federal government has been particularly aggressive and particularly effective in mandates. If you look over the past 20 years through both Republican and Democratic administrations, the federal government has mandated and achieved significant energy savings. Right now, and every time we hit one benchmark, the Congress then ratchets it down again. So right now, we're in the process of a 30% energy intensity reduction in federal facilities by 2016. Indications are that all of the agencies, with the possible exception of Homeland Security, are going to meet that reduction. Think about that. That's in less than a 10-year period. We've pulled 30% of the energy use out of these federal facilities. And that's on top of a previous 20% reduction. And so there's a huge amount that's possible. So the first driver is mandates. The second driver is the need for capital improvement in facilities. And I'll just give you one example. When President Obama announced about a year ago the jobs program, how many people remember the jobs program? It was a big public works initiative. It was kind of DOA in the Congress. He used the number that public schools need $250 billion in many cases. What these energy efficiency projects, which pay for themselves, however, allow you to do is make those capital improvements paid for with energy savings. A typical facility wastes 30% of the energy that it buys. You don't get anything for that money. For that 30% of the energy, you get nothing. If you take just that 30% that you're now spending and convert it into a payment stream, you know, think about a mortgage. You know, you're converting it into a payment stream against a long-term loan or long-term financing. You're able to buy capital improvements in buildings without increasing your expenditures at all. So you can buy new lighting systems, new heating systems, new roofs, windows. It's hard to imagine those kinds of things here in California, where on the coast you really don't have weather. You have plagues, but you don't have weather. But in lots of the country, you know, we have heating load, we have air conditioning load. So those kinds of improvements pay for themselves in a relatively short period of time. So it becomes a capital improvement program, and that's what's really driving, in many cases, particularly at the local government level, that's what's driving these improvements. It's not that the facility manager in the school district in Omaha wakes up one day and says, I'm going to save the planet today. Instead, he or she wakes up and says, I need 10 new boilers, and I don't have any money. Or I need a new roof on the high school, and I don't have any way to pay for it. That's what's driving these projects. So I think when you think about the, you know, how we're approaching these problems, think about it from the viewpoint of the people who are actually running the facilities. Those needs aren't going to go away. The fiscal condition of our government agencies at state and local level is not going to get any better over the next few years. So it's a huge driver, a huge potential market, and it's just sitting there in front of us. Thanks.
Thank you, Don. That's an I think that's a really excellent segue to our next speaker. It's really, I think, important to be listening and learning about, to these financial formulas that are out there. I mean, this whole concept that we can, you know, pay, that these projects will pay for themselves, and then also hearing the real need for the upfront capital investment in order for that to happen so that we can start seeing a return on these investments is really quite critical. And this concept that there's $100 billion, did you say, in the municipal sector of opportunity.
Not just municipal, state, local, and federal.
State, local, and federal sector is, you know, a number I think that we should keep in mind. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about the private sector and the possibility and opportunity for investment from and in the private sector. And I'm going to introduce Stephen DeBerry to speak to that. Stephen DeBerry makes and manages investments that align strong financial returns with positive social impact. He is a partner at the early stage technology investing firm, Caper Capital, and the founder of Bronze Investments, an asset management firm serving founders, foundations, endowments, and families who seek to align their investment practices with their missions and values. In 2010, Stephen was selected as one of the Route 100 list of most influential African Americans in the United States. Congratulations on that. Stephen DeBerry.
Great, thanks, Francesca. I'll try to be brief and maybe get us back on schedule. But let me explain to you, I want to do two things, and then hopefully we'll have some dialogue. But two things really quickly. I'd like to explain to you what I do for a living and why that matters. And I'd like to explain to you why I spend so much time working on Emerald Cities. So what I do is I'm an impact investor. I'm a mission investor. And the fundamental idea there is one that I think will be very important for this moment in time for us and our economy. The basic idea is, can we build an approach to investing that centers itself around building companies that, yes, generate profits, but generate their profits through products, services, and projects that create some form of positive social impact along the way. So let's be in the business, the for-profit business of creating positive outcomes. That's the basic idea. And what I will tell you is that I've been pursuing that idea for about 15 years. I was originally trained as an anthropologist and spent most of my time thinking about what anthropologists do, the human condition generally. And I did most of my work focused on urban communities in the US. And as I got further into my training, I realized that the discipline of anthropology is fantastic and powerful at deconstructing and helping to understand communities and societies and groups. But again, I was thinking about kind of urban issues in the United States, and at a point I realized that this kind of diagnostic tool set, trying to pull things apart and figure out what was wrong, wasn't what we needed, because we know what's wrong. We know what the challenges are. And when I started to think about the conversation that we needed to have, which is, well, how do we fix this stuff? I realized that that's not what I was getting from that discipline, as powerful as it is. And so I started to think about, well, where do you get the solutions to what we need? And the realization became crystal clear at that point. The answers, not always, but most of the time, are economic in nature. You can't buy a solution to every problem, but you can buy a solution to a lot of problems that are out there. And so I made a shift in my own, kind of life trajectory, and I literally, from my graduate school, walked from the anthropology department over to the business school and said, I'd like to sit here now, please. They said, go away, you didn't apply, and I argued. I'm good at arguing. And found my way in there. So fast forward to where we are today. I run an investment firm based in San Francisco called Bronze Investments. And we are in the business of doing exactly what I described, which is identifying and building products, services, and projects that create positive social impact, and doing that profitably. I have been involved in the Emerald Cities project since it was a concept, before it was formally organized as a nonprofit, before we had the fantastic leadership that we have now, before we had the local councils that we have. And I've been committed to Emerald Cities because as I've worked over the last 15 plus years on this idea of impact investing, one of the great struggles that I've had is trying to articulate to the business community, to investors, an investment thesis that is clear about how you can both generate profits and how you can generate social impact. And I did a lot of investing and still do a lot of investing in, technology companies, web-based companies, and there are ways that you can find examples, but they're really the edge cases. And so when you talk to traditional investors in those categories, and you start talking about this social impact thesis, folks, the eyebrow kind of goes up, and, there's some skepticism. Here's the good news about Emerald Cities and what we're doing with energy efficiency. I mean, we just heard from Dawn. There is a well-established industry that's doing $5 to $6 billion a year in projects. The economic thesis for energy efficiency is known. And, you don't have to be too complicated with the math. At the end of the day, we know if we're wasting 30% of energy, it's waste. If you get any of that back, it's gravy, right? It's not complicated math, okay? So that, for an investor like me, who's really trying to, kind of advance this impact investment thesis, energy efficiency is incredibly attractive because we have two very clear objectives. One is the profit motive, and that's proven. We can make these projects profitable. We can look to the ESCO industry and other, kind of project finance approaches and demonstrate that this can be done profitably. But I would submit to you that equally important to that formula is the social impact here. And I think that, Don touched on this as well, The job creation that comes from these projects is not only demonstrable, but it's clearly measurable. And so we can hold ourselves and each other accountable to those kinds of outcomes. But I'll tell you that the most recent fund that we've capitalized at our firm has as its anchor investor one of the largest healthcare foundations in the country. And in addition to job creation, there are other very important forms of impact that relate to health. We talked about lights. I'll give you an example. Several of the buildings that are candidates for energy efficiency projects today are burning fluorescent light bulbs that were installed in the 70s, especially in schools. And those lights today are literally dripping toxic mercury on students. So we have not only the economic imperative to be more efficient, save money, but we have the health and education imperative to make these environments cleaner for students and all the rest of us who occupy buildings. We spend about 90% of our lives inside buildings. So, one of the reasons that I'm most excited about Emerald Cities is that of all the forms of investment and business that I've been involved in my career, energy efficiency and what Emerald Cities is bringing to the table provides the clearest profit pursuit thesis and the clearest social impact framework that I've seen.
Great, thank you. So there's a couple of things that you mentioned. I think it's a good lead-in as we move to Peter Goldstein and make his introduction. And that's some of the specifics around job creation and how we can really demonstrate and measure jobs being created in this sector and how important that is. But it sort of begs the question of what these jobs are and how we're going to really be training the workforce to be ready to take on some of the questions and projects that we're specifically talking about. Who's working on these $5 billion worth of projects? And what are we going to do to really get our workforce ready to make the changes that we need to see? The other piece is kind of the facilities piece, because as we talk about job creation, there's all this work around the, not just changing out the mercury-laden light bulbs, but it's also about how we're going to build the buildings for the future. 90% of our time we spend indoors. And I think that the city and community colleges have been real leaders in demonstrating what these facilities could and should look like. So I'm going to turn to Peter Goldstein, and hopefully he can talk a little bit about some of those two pieces. And also, it would be great if you could talk a bit about, the appetite for sustainability among the student body and leadership as you see it. So, Peter Goldstein is the Vice Chancellor of Finance and Administration for City College of San Francisco. Before that, he served in the Mayor's Office for the City and County of San Francisco as the city's budget manager. And prior to that, he was the Senior Auditor in the State of California's Office of the Auditor General. Peter?
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you to Emerald Cities for bringing this all together. I'm sorry about that. First, a word about us, City College. We're part of the state community college system. Our sustainability is under threat right now. We have been shrunken due to declining state revenues and cuts from the state level. Our mission is to try to serve our community as well as possible. We are the largest workforce trainer in our community in San Francisco, but we're smaller than we used to be, and hopefully the voters don't decide to make us any smaller than that in the coming weeks. So just a word on that. And that's important because of who we serve. Our students, and for urban community colleges, this is particularly true. Our students are primarily students of color. Our students are primarily from lower income backgrounds. And the community college historically has been the path through higher education for large numbers of those students. We want to keep that available. What we provide in terms of opportunities for those students change over the years, but that basic tenet hasn't changed. And as you look at the green economy, as you look at sustainability issues, we are the vital conduit for those students from those parts of our community to to get through higher education to successful careers. So there's clearly an equity issue with a community college. And as the largest workforce trainer, there's clearly an economic issue. We're doing a lot in a number of ways, but we've only gotten started. The Board of Trustees, led by President Rizzo, pushed for a sustainability plan to be created, and it was. It speaks directly to our facilities, the way we operate them, the way we build them. There's a second part that hasn't been completed yet that speaks to curriculum, but there's already things happening there as well. So what's actually happening and what's ahead? We partnered with Emerald Cities to try to bring about more energy conservation projects because, as the previous speaker said, there's money being wasted, and we can't afford to waste any more money. We're not totally new to this. We actually retrofitted virtually all the lighting at the college way back in 1995. But of course, that's now old technology, and the savings are available once again if we can revisit that issue. Our new buildings are LEED certified. Again, the board moved forward to require that. So we have a minimum standard of LEED silver for our new buildings. We do have 2 that are better than that. But every building that we construct from now on will be LEED certified. That's just the way it is for us now. And that made me think of 3 drivers, not just 1, not just 2, that cause us to move in this direction. One, which no one's mentioned, is the law. I mean, the law said you must reduce your solid waste, and so we did. And if they change it to make us do even more, we're going to have to do even more. Another is the economics. We learned back in the mid-90s, and we continually learn, that there are ways to spend less on utilities and maintenance, and therefore free up dollars for programs. And then the last thing is that it's the right thing to do. It may have some elements of the first 2, but it's primarily going beyond that. And when the board said new buildings will be LEED certified, that's because that's the right thing to do right now. In terms of the actual programs that we're offering, we offer certificate programs already in green and sustainable businesses. There are 3 flavors of that. It's all on our website. There's a nice embedded video by the faculty member who leads that effort. They're for business, for small business, for the travel and tourism industry. We also have a sustainability certificate program in addition to the environmental studies that Mr. Rizzo spoke about. Even in a shrinking environment, it's important to know that not everything shrinks. We would love to see those programs grow. And that is determined these days by how many students are trying to enroll in those programs. If the demand is there, we're going to add sections. We're going to grow those programs even if the college as a whole is not growing. It's important to know. And if there are any folks here from the private sector, the best way for more students to feel like they want to get into those programs is to hear that students are getting jobs from those programs. So what would be directly beneficial to us in terms of partnerships with the private sector is if employers hire our students when they complete those degrees. In terms of our facilities, I'm circling back again. I heard earlier today there's going to be a kick the tires out at Peralta, and I'm sure it will be as impressive as described. We also have a very impressive project, but you can't see it. Not because it's top secret, but because it's under the ground. We built a brand new facility. It opened about 3 years ago on our Ocean campus. And prior to building that facility, as part of our master plan for that site, which will include 2 other buildings eventually, we dug hundreds of geothermal wells, thousands of feet into the ground, to operate the heating and cooling systems for the buildings off a constant 55-degree base temperature. If you want more on the technical parts of that, I'm not the guy that can describe that to you, but I can put you in touch with the people who designed and built it. But it works, and it's just another example of something that would not have been given serious thought a long time ago, but now it's there. It's paid for and it's there. We'd love to do more, and that's why, again, we're partnering with Emerald Cities. We've kind of reached the end of the available funds under our bond issues, so we need to leverage other monies to complete our energy improvements. And we have old buildings, as Mr. Rizzo mentioned. We don't have just one 100-year-old building. And we don't have energy management systems in those buildings. We need to bring those forward. So there's a lot that we've done. There's a lot more we can do, and I hope you agree that community colleges in general and City College in particular are very important institutions to make those things happen.
Thank you, and I think at this point that you raise around workforce development is critical, and you know the demand, and where do we really encourage the demand for these environmental sustainability certificates, and what's the pipeline? So who are the companies that are out there hiring? How can we help with career advice, career development for these young people who want to get involved in this field and who can really make the connection between all these critical pieces of the economy and the environment. So now we are going to hear about some more specifics in that area. We're going to turn to Charles Neal. He's the Energy and Environmental Sustainability Manager for the Peralta Community College District. Charles's job is to advance the district's sustainability efforts as set out in the Board of Trustees' sustainability policy. The Peralta Community College District seeks to lead the district to net zero greenhouse gases with additional goals of electricity and gas conservation, green building, recycling and composting, environmentally conscious purchasing policies, and alternative transportation. And I'm hoping that we can continue talking about this certificate and degree question, what the demand is, and beyond classroom instruction, what some of these young people need to really be ready for the green economy.
Excuse me, good morning, and again, a warm welcome to Berkeley City College and to Peralta Community College District. So I will share with you a little bit about the degree of commitment of this community college district, which is very, very strong. It's unbending and unequivocal. It's, as I explained not long ago in a brief interview, that there's no turning back when it comes to sustainability. As a matter of fact, the rate of adoption will actually pick up. So some of the way that, that commitment at our district is demonstrated is through policy, through personnel, through student engagement. A little bit about the district. The district has 69 permanent structures in terms of building, and any number of temporary structures. We call them trailer. You guys have seen them. They look like manufactured homes, and they house some of our personnel while we continue to upgrade some of our facilities. I believe we have close to 20 of those temporary homes right now. So all told, we have about 1.485 million square feet of building space, if you will, office and classroom space. So the district is in a very unique position to make a great impact in terms of the reduction in energy usage, in terms of reducing its carbon footprint. To do that, to be successful with any sustainability program or effort, we need to have buy-in and strong support, demonstrable support, I should say, from top to bottom. And we have that as a district. We have a policy, a sustainability policy that's been in place since I think it was formulated in 2005 and last reviewed in 2007. So we're in the process of beginning a new review process, because in sustainability, you know, from 2007 to 2012, I mean, that's like dog years or internet years. That's a long time to be with the same policies. So we're starting that process. Part of our focus is also sustainability itself is very holistic. So you can't maximize your effort by focusing only in one area and ignoring other areas. So we look at buildings, we look at transportation, we look at procurement. For example, buying recycled products, buying Green Seal certified cleaning products. We look at composting. We've heard a lot about driving waste out of the system. Ultimately, that's a big part are a big component of sustainability. There's no sense in buying 10 chairs if you'll only use 7 and you'll toss 3 chairs. That money had to come from somewhere and it goes somewhere. So it's a big part of what we do. In terms of workforce education, workforce improvement, workforce preparation, our college, our colleges, and I would like to single out Laney College today in particular, is at the forefront of this area. We have an environmental control technology education program. We have a green technology education program. We have just been designated, I believe, a training provider for building efficiency for sustainable tomorrow. And we're right now going through the design charrette process for a phase 1 construction project for a sustainability center, which we hope will move from the current 5,000 square feet, phase 1, to ultimately 30,000 square feet right there on the campus of Laney. And someone earlier described it as Star Wars. And I saw our architects who are here today laugh. No pressure. So Stevens and Andrew and Mr. Nick Kriakapiti back there, the chair, who's been pushing for this for, I don't know, I think Nick said about 2 decades now. So it's finally coming around. So there's a lot happening on the campus. Our campus also has a Chancellor Advisory Committee on Sustainability, which is a combination of faculty, staff, students, and community partners. So we're open to ideas coming from the outside, and we're open to community partnerships, of which Emerald is one of our prime community partners, but we also have other partners, the CCCIOU, and that's community colleges, California community colleges, and investor-owned utilities. So we partner with those, with that group, and we get quite a bit of rebate money to allay some of the cost of doing these projects. In addition to the savings that are realized, we partner with groups like Quest, which is an engineering firm located right here in Berkeley, who has been instrumental in helping us upgrade our lighting and saving us quite a bit of money. I believe they brought in overall $500,000 worth of upgrades, and they also introduced us to the concept of integrated classroom lighting control, where we installed in designated classrooms occupancy sensors, daylight sensors, wireless dimming ballast, and program that system to work together with the ambient light that's coming from outside, such that we don't have our classrooms overlit. We only have what we need. So with that said, I think that gives you a pretty good idea of the level of our commitment to sustainability. And during the panel discussion, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys pose or that comes my way. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Last but certainly not least, we are very fortunate to have Melanie Nutter here with us. She's the director of San Francisco's Department of the Environment, and she really is the one representing the public sector here on the panel, which is quite exciting and important because we know that public-private partnership is really what we're going to need to drive this agenda. So Melanie Nutter was appointed in 2010 by Mayor Gavin Newsom. She leads the Department of Environment, which helps all San Francisco residents and businesses protect and enhance our urban environment. They provide information on sustainable practices, and they develop innovative and practical environmental programs for all residents. Prior to working for the City and County of San Francisco, Melanie served as Deputy District Director for the U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and she has been an environmental organizer with Greenbelt Alliance, the Public Interest Research Group, and Green Corps. Melanie, welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks to Emerald Cities for inviting me to participate in this panel and to Francesca for moderating. As your resident bureaucrat, I'm going to talk a little bit about cities and what the role is of cities in job creation and expanding the green economy. So at Department of the Environment, we have been in existence for over a decade, and really our main focus for a long time, actually when Francesca used to have my job many, many, many years ago, was really focused on protecting the environment. That was the key focus. And as the department has expanded and grown, we now have a mission that does fit very squarely with promoting sustainability and including a lot of what we're talking about here today, not only protecting the environment and ensuring that we can have a safe environment for our residents and businesses in San Francisco, but really thinking about how the policies and programs of a city can expand the green economy and create jobs and also promote social equity. So that's now a very key part of our mission as a city agency. So I wanted to just spend a couple minutes today talking about specifics. I think you heard a couple of the panelists, Stephen in particular, talk about measurements and metrics and how we can quantify what the impact is of certain sustainability policies and programs. So in the city and county of San Francisco, we have a number of sustainability programs that have had a great impact on jobs and the economy. One area that we focus a lot on at the department is around energy efficiency. I know you've heard a lot about energy efficiency today. We have a very successful program called the San Francisco Energy Watch program, which is funded by PG&E, so it is a public-private partnership. And what we essentially do is work with small businesses in San Francisco to help do energy efficiency audits for those businesses, both to reduce carbon emissions in San Francisco, but also to save money on their energy bills. And particularly right now, we have 24 contractors that are participating in our Energy Watch program, totaling around 180 jobs. So although that may seem like a small number, that's almost 200 jobs. And when you think about energy efficiency programs that can be replicated in cities around the US and around the world, those numbers really start to multiply and thinking about how cities can create and sustain jobs. Another program that we've run in San Francisco most recently is the Home Improvement Performance Program. This is not focused on the business sector, but really on the home the residential sector. And we had a series of individuals that went out and worked with homeowners to do a home performance audit, looking at the whole home of how to seal up your building envelope to reduce, again, carbon emissions and to save money on your energy bills. And through that program alone, it resulted in 14,000 labor hours, including residential energy audits and energy upgrades. That program was partially funded by stimulus dollars, so it was federally funded, but again, was a great program where we had thousands of residents participate in doing a residential audit and created quite a few job hours in the city and county of San Francisco. Just a couple of other examples on the renewable energy front. San Francisco does have a goal to be 100% renewably powered in 10 years. And over the past few years, we've really focused on both working with the Public Utilities Commission on the Go Solar rebate that has been offered to residents to implement solar installations on their home. And we now in San Francisco have over 3,000 solar installations in the city, which is, by my most recent calculations and understanding, more than 29 US states have in terms of renewable energy. So the investment in rebates and also in our policies has really helped to increase solar installations. But on the jobs front, currently there are over 400 people employed in the solar industry, representing about 34 local solar companies. Just through Go Solar SF, 84 people have been hired through this incentive program. So again, measurable impact in terms of job creation as well as reaching our sustainability goals. And then finally, the other program I wanted to mention is our zero waste program. San Francisco has a goal of reaching 100% zero waste by 2020. That means that all of our waste will be diverted from the landfill, either recycled, composted, or reused. We most recently announced, actually 2 weeks ago, that we've reached an 80% diversion rate. So we're doing fantastic in terms of participation, really working towards that goal. But again, when it comes to jobs and economy, our private sector partner, Recology, who helps to implement our zero waste program, have added over 250 people to its San Francisco staff simply based on a policy we passed around making recycling and composting mandatory in the city. So a very direct job creation benefit from that policy. So I just wanted to give you a few examples of, at the local level, through innovative policies and programs, how cities can contribute to creating jobs and stimulating the green economy. And because there's a focus today also around community colleges, I just wanted to close on a couple of ways that we've worked with community colleges at the local level. You heard Peter mention the Green Business program that is run at community colleges. And that's something that Department of the Environment, when it first got started, was a partner in helping to create the curriculum as well as co-teaching some of the classes. So cities can really be a resource to community colleges in helping to develop and expand training and curriculum for some of these sustainability programs. And then most recently, the final point that I'll make, and I know we want to get to discussion, is we have a new policy called the Existing Commercial Building Ordinance in San Francisco, which requires all commercial buildings 10,000 square feet and over to benchmark their energy use and report it to the city, as well as to get an energy audit every year. And this requires ASHRAE level 1 and 2 audits by trained engineers. And we've actually partnered with local community colleges to put together a training program to get more engineers into that program to help meet our ordinance. So again, it's a great partnership between the city and the education sector to ensure the training is happening and jobs are being created. So we're just looking forward to strengthening the partnership between the city and community colleges for us all to help meet our sustainability goals as well as our social equity and economic goals as well. So thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Melanie. And I think one thing to remember too is that, you know, the city and county of San Francisco is the largest employer in the city and county of San Francisco. And that is very significant when you listen to all of these far-reaching policies and programs about the workforce and what we're going to really need to implement all of these visionary programs within the city of San Francisco. So that's going to be, you know, an area to really look to for training the new workforce, for, you know, graduate certificate programs, and to really strengthen the partnerships between, you know, the city and county, not just the Department of the Environment, but some of the other city departments, as well as, you know, the community college program. So now we're going to open it up to the audience for some questions or comments of our panelists. And there's a couple of microphones, so please go ahead.
Hi, Ryan Young with the Green Lining Institute. My question is for Donald. What do you see as the role of ESCOs in ensuring job access and equity, both in terms of your own procurement and in terms of direct employment?
Well, there are two separate pieces to that. The first is to understand. The question I think was, how can the ESCO industry facilitate job equity and job access? Is that correct? Okay. First to understand how the industry works. ESCOs are like project developers. I mean, think about it as a property developer of a new shopping center or something like that. So the ESCO is sort of at the top of a pyramid. Its own staff is pretty expert, not pretty expert, very expert. So an ESCO staff is very experienced energy engineers and very experienced project finance people, essentially, and salespeople, lots of salespeople. So there are very few opportunities to directly go from training programs, the community college program, into the ESCO companies. Most of the employment in the projects, however, is at the subcontract or contractor level. So all of the work is done by mechanical contractors or electrical contractors or roofers or glaziers, people like that. That's where the job entry potential is, and the way that gets driven is by mandates from the customer. You know, the ESCO business is very competitive. It's up to the customer to say, you know, we need 25% minority and women business subcontracting. We need 25%, you know, whatever the numbers are, local hires for your subcontractors. If the customer says, I want the lowest price for the project, you know, irrespective of any of these other considerations, that's what they get. It's very difficult in the business to have to tell one company they've got to go in and bid a comprehensive project that includes a lot of these job training and more expensive elements against somebody else who doesn't do that. They won't win the job. So it's really that's where I see the Emerald Cities coalition coming into play, is that the requirement is driven from the customer level. Since these are all public facilities that we're working on, that should be a very effective route to do it, and it happens in a lot of communities. It's not universal, but it happens in a lot of communities.
Avni, do you have somebody?
Morning. Thank you to the panelists for your presentations this morning. I have a minor comment, a major point, and then a question for Melanie Nutter and Peter Goldstein. Okay, so my minor comment is that we see these single-use disposable water bottles on the table where you're sitting. And I'd like to suggest that if you have a reusable water bottle, you should use it, bring it and use it. If not, invest in one. Okay. Okay, so let me introduce myself.
Good idea, thank you for that. I think that there's a lot of progress to be made that needs to be made in all kinds of large facilities around the single-use bottle, so we appreciate that.
Okay, so I'm Denise Louie. I'm a student at City College of San Francisco. I also volunteer with a number of groups, one of which is the California Invasive Plant Council out of Berkeley. And this past weekend, we had a symposium, and we talked a lot about invasive weedy plants. So I noticed today we talked about green things, we talked about the environment, we talked about sustainability, but we haven't talked about sustainable landscaping. And the reason it's so important for California is that California is a biodiversity hotspot. We have many rare and endangered plants. Some are endemic that grow nowhere else besides California. The fauna co-evolved with the flora. So the fauna are also at risk. And we need to educate ourselves, and our schools need to educate students and the college communities about removing and avoiding invasive plants and planting locally native plants. So my question now,
Thank you.
sorry, is whether the Department of the Environment and City College can do their share, and especially the college, to train the workforce in environmental horticulture not to use the invasive plants they have been using for so many years.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Peter, do you want to respond to, do you have a do you know about certification programs in environmental?
Well, I'm certainly not an expert in plant life, and I received your email this week, Denise. I haven't had a chance to respond to it yet. But we certainly would be willing to work with the Department of Environment in that way.
And thank you very much for your comment and your question. At Department of the Environment, we have really been focused for many years on urban environmental programs, and we just last year added biodiversity to our strategic plan in terms of really having a focus not only on urban environmental programs, but on nature and protecting what's still left We also support Bay Friendly, which is the organization that's really focused on sustainable landscaping in San Francisco and in the Bay Area. But I would love to talk to you more after this panel about how we could work together. It's certainly a priority for us.
Great, thank
And
you.
just a heads up, we are short on time because Hilda Solis coming in, so if we move forward quickly, it's because of our timing.
So maybe these last three questions over here. Oh, there is? Okay.
Could we have questions?
President Rizzo.
I want to inject a little reality to this. Let's talk about workforce training. State of California has cut funding to community colleges by $800 million. We are training fewer people, not more people, but fewer people. City College is training 15,000 fewer students. So this is reality, folks. Cities need to step up. Cities are not stepping up. They talk about workforce training. It's not happening. We are training fewer people. The LA Times had an article about a year ago about that this is a real problem for the California economy. And I think people should realize this and accept this as fact, not pretend that we're going to keep on, or we're going to grow workforce training, because we're not growing, we're shrinking, as Peter Goldstein mentioned.
Thank you. I really appreciate that too, because we have heard a lot about opportunity, and I think one of the values of all being together is to also talk about the challenges and the barriers and what we're going to need to do to overcome them. So we can take these last three, but they need to be short and quick so that we can move it along.
I have Steve Gelb with Emerald Cities in Seattle. I have a question about the kind of equitable workforce, and I think there's a common assumption that when we have workforce agreements, that that the projects cost a lot more. And I'd like to challenge that, or at least ask if there's information on that. Some of the work we've looked at says that a large part of the project costs are equipment, which is not labor related. A large part is technical engineering, project management, and so on. And that the direct labor, especially the labor that's called for by allowing people of color, women, and local hire, are done by apprentices, whose labor rates are typically lower. So we have found that labor costs don't really increase that much, and just like to know if anyone has any viewpoint on that.
I can give a quick, I agree that the direct labor costs in for a union project versus a non-union project are often very comparable, and there are a number of ESCOs that do union projects across the country. What I was talking about was over and above that direct input into the project labor is things that we're working for at Emerald Cities, which is carving out a piece of the project cost for training for a demonstrable piece, 1%, 2% of the project cost, sort of off the top or off the, however you want, that goes, that's an additional cost. And if that's mandated, the ESCO industry will respond. If it's not mandated, it's very hard for one company to have it and another company not to have it in a competitive environment.
Stephen wants to make a brief remark.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that. So I think this is a very important question, because let's just assume costs are the same. I think there's an issue that is not being pointed to directly, and I just want to bring it up, and that's the question of will. What's the will of the people who are putting these projects together? And I respectfully encourage my colleague to think beyond just the 1 or 2% or whatever the minimum percentage mandate is for these projects. And really, I think this points to the importance of Emerald Cities as a project. It's taking a high road approach, which says we are intentionally going to be oriented around equity and inclusion, just fundamentally in terms of the way we think about designing these projects. That's what's different, that's what's important. We've got a $5 billion industry doing this work already, but it needs to be done in a different way. And it is, at the end of the day, I think, assuming you get to the point where the economics are the same, which you can, not always, but you can, you gotta have the will.
Great, thank you. Was there another question right there?
Hello, I'm Gary Yee from Career Ladders Project, but I'm actually speaking to Emerald Cities right now with a question I think engages everybody. Also on the Board of Education in the Oakland Public Schools, and we're going to our voters for a bond measure, $450 million bond measure for modernization. So we built 3 priorities in there that I think are very much like what you would be interested in. One is a sustainability policy, second is local hire, and third is a work-based learning component. And we thought we were very cutting edge by putting all 3 in a bond measure, which is essentially modernization. So I would add in employment for one of those E's, because local hire is a high priority for us. We're going for over 50% local hire. So just for Emerald Cities to consider, especially Mr. Gilligan and some others, is we would appreciate some models, some samples, some collection of other people who have done this around local facilities projects, people who have looked at modernization, environmental sustainability, local hire, and the educational work give back. I think that's the key for this work-based learning, and to actually put money into work-based learning as community colleges and as high schools are both being cut back in terms of funding. If we can build that into this bond measure and make it an expectation that contractors contribute work-based learning opportunities for both the high school kids and the graduates, I think that's something Emerald Cities could really take the lead on. Comment?
Yeah, there are a couple things.
Quick
And I
comments,
just want
then
to
we're
step
gonna-
in, the panels will be available after, because we
Yeah.
do have to move forward, so respond and we
So
can.
this will be the final comment here.
You know, there are lots of projects with local hire requirements. I'm not sure I've ever seen one at 50%, but there are, in many cases, customers say, you know, we want you to hire from these subcontractors. So that's quite doable. There is a precedent for the work-based learning in that there is a federal program called the QECB. I can't remember what the acronym stands for. There's about $2.5 billion qualified energy conservation bonds that requires an education component along with the project financing. Oftentimes, that education component is not really wholehearted, but it's sitting there, and it is a very good precedent. There's been about $1 billion worth of those projects done. There's another $2.5 billion sitting there in federal dollars.
And Peter, one final
I just
comment.
want to, we recently completed our new Chinatown North Beach campus, and because it was an issue of high importance to our publicly elected board, we had a strong local hire component, and we didn't get to 50, but we got to just about 40% on that project.
Great. So, and I like this idea of the 5th E being employment. So thank you for that. So our panelists will be available afterwards individually for some questions and answers if you want to talk to them a little bit more. But why don't we give them all a big round of applause for this wonderful panel. Thank you so much.
And let's also personally thank Francesca. I mean, she also can contribute a lot to this in the foundation community, and also she serves on the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. So she's someone to get to know and is a real important partner in this work. So thank the panelists again, and we're going to be moving from a live streaming. We're going to be off for a few minutes because we will have some opening comments from the Department of Energy, Dr. Michelle Fox. So, but in the meantime, as Dr. Fox come up, I would also invite the second panel on workforce education, workforce and community education to come up, and then we will resume live streaming in about 10 minutes.